here we go. All right.
We
are live on X and on YouTube for This Week in Crowdfunding. Again, we're back. So last week was a incredibly exciting episode. We had Woodie and Yvonne on and talked about everything as it relates to the month of November in crowdfunding and all they're doing with their research. Super fascinating. A lot of great conversations, a lot of great answers to our questions. Really felt like I walked out of there understanding the crowdfunding ecosystem more than I had before.
Brendan, let me ask you a quick question. What was your biggest takeaway from last week?
I would say my biggest takeaway was the sheer amount of my biggest takeaway. Two biggest takeaways. Here we go. I didn't understand how much action debt crowdfunding was getting.
Yes.
And it almost, then my second one would be, it confirmed my belief that small businesses, or maybe not small businesses, but you know how Woody was talking about, it's not just LA and New York.
Yep.
It's like Sheridan, Wyoming, and like, I think he said Boise, Idaho.
The small market cities.
Small market cities saw a lot of action. And I think that's like was my takeaway, that it's not just necessarily the high growth startups or the sexy Silicon Valley startups. That's more of what I was going for, because they could be high growth startups in these small towns, but there's access to capital in places other than Silicon Valley and the big metro areas.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating because you can see, well, this isn't just going to impact and like help create an idea and turn it into an actual like tangible business, but this is actually going to help grow and build a local economy and stimulate the local economy and help the people working within the local economy. So
I think the jobs fact is I think the most important thing you can take away from the positives of crowdfunding is it's creating jobs in places around the country, around the world, because crowdfunding is not just in the United States. And if you can stimulate the economy that way and give people more opportunity, you saw with the diversity numbers as well. This is just an all-around good thing.
Yep. What was it? 7,400 jobs were created in just November, just the month of November.
I think he said 440K since inception.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's always good. You can see how this is very good for the economy and for the world, especially for the smaller markets too.
So you wanted to start today with a story about Lendo, right? That's where you want to start talking. So Connor sent me this story a couple of days ago from FinTech Global. You want me to share my screen so we can show the audience what we're talking about?
Do that. That'd be great.
All right.
Another debt crowdfunding platform.
Yeah. So here we go. Lendo secures $28 million in Series B funding for Sharia. I might be pronouncing that wrong. Sharia compliant crowdfunding.
It's like Islamic compliance, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Okay. Saudi Arabia-based fintech company. This is from FinTech Global. So Connor, what did you take from this?
Well, I thought it was exciting seeing a debt crowdfunding platform receive $28 billion in Series B. It's always a good sign seeing more of these platforms raising more money, because they can help promote crowdfunding, debt crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding. It would just helps them grow and helps the overall crowdfunding industry grow. Now, it was fascinating. If you can scroll down a little bit, we can look at the people that funded or helped lead this Series B, and it was right there. Sanabile
Investments, a firm wholly owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund,
with significant contributions so Shirok Partners. They just raised $150 million fund.
Oh wow!
So they're a big player.
Significant investment into this, then, right?
Yeah, and they invest in
that fund.
Yes, they invest in. What is it? It's kind of like high growth companies, startups in emerging markets. Mm-hmm. That's exciting seeing, a startup that's raised that large of a fund invest in a debt crowdfunding platform. So, clearly they see a lot of potential in this platform and in the growth of this industry. So that's why I got excited. What's your take?
I mean, it goes back to what we talked about last week, which is, the considerable headwinds that something like Honeycomb is getting. And I think this is just another example that debt crowdfunding is really carving out a place for itself.
Yep.
Now, I know from being a listener of This Week in Startups that some VCs aren't super high on their own investments raising via debt, especially in technology. He actually mentioned that in the last episode that they had. If you want to check that out, really good explanation as to why. But that's really just the way I look at it. I think it's that debt crowdfunding is really becoming a real thing, and you're just going to see more examples of platforms going out there. And this is a big number. I mean, 28 million is nothing to, it's a big number. So it's a significant investment.
And I see raising VC capital and debt crowdfunding as two completely different ways to raise capital. I imagine VC is much more intensive. You have to have a lot more meetings. Probably have to go through 100 or so meetings just to raise 20-30 million dollars, and it's a lot. And that's kind of 6 months to raise it, and 6 months to probably get it. So it takes a year. This debt crowdfunding seems a little bit faster, and I think the VCs don't necessarily like investing some of their money after you raise debt crowdfunding, just because it's kind of like what's the phrase? Stealing from Paul to pay Peter.
Yeah. Like
something like that.
Yeah, that's the way Jake Cal explained it. It was like I'm giving you $10 million to pay somebody else $5.
Yeah, and it goes to their interest, right?
Yeah, and it's like, why would I do that? But then again, not all startups or companies are in the same position as a fast-growing tech startup, right?
Yeah.
There's a ton of different companies out there, and debt crowdfunding has a place. I mean, it clearly wouldn't be being used if it wasn't useful.
And I think it especially goes back to the companies that aren't in Silicon Valley, New York, that can't really meet those VCs. And if they were to meet those VCs, they would have to fly, every other day, travel around the world to meet those VCs. This makes so much more sense for them because it's very similar to getting a bank loan. You can get it from individuals that slowly add up instead of having to go to one bank and apply for a loan. You can probably get a little bit better interest rates this way than from a typical bank loan, especially for a startup. So I think this is really exciting. Clearly, there's a lot of potential in it. There's a lot of opportunity in this industry, and it looks like the future is going to be bright.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You want to move on and talk about Woodie and his interview with Crowdfund Insider? I thought this was probably the article of the week for me. I'm going to share my screen again.
It was great.
Yep. Crowdfund Insider, great site for crowdfunding stuff and breaking news. So Sherwood Niece, Woodie, who was on last week, talked to Crowdfund Insider on the evolution of crowdfunding. Goes into a lot of detail, and it gives a really good perspective on where the industry has been and where it is going. Woodie is one of the architects, as it says here, of regulation crowdfunding. So he is as good of a guy to talk about as anybody. I thought this was the most interesting part of the article. Discusses efforts with regulatory barriers facing the industry, including CPA reviews, regulatory exposure for crowdfunding platforms, and accredited investor restrictions. Woodie went really into depth on those issues, and it is well worth the read. I won't read it out loud to you, but Connor, what did you think?
Well, I love the fact that the industry surpassed the $2 billion mark. I thought that was massive. It's a huge milestone, and it keeps going back to this momentum of the industry continuing to get momentum, continuing to grow, continuing to get, I think, increase in velocity with the number of investments being made and the number of people making investments. But I think the emphasis that you pointed on CPA reviews, us being accountants, us passing the CPA exams, we understand the importance behind having CPA reviews, especially for these startups, because it applies that extra bit. It's almost like an extra safety net, right? That helps, reasonably assure that nothing's too wrong with the financial statements and making sure that they're following the rules. And a lot of people don't understand accounting. I think that's a big issue.
Yeah.
But it's like a foreign language, just kind of like how I see code. And
Right.
so maybe applying these CPA reviews can really help, make more people trust the industry and make more people kind of, I guess, provide a safety net for investors.
I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest barriers facing this industry, in my opinion, is ensuring that investors are protected.
Yeah.
And CPA reviews are a huge step forward, would be a huge step forward. And if they were more widely accepted, I'm not necessarily very keen on how widely they're used now. Um, but I know Woody goes into detail about why they're important. We need to protect investors. I mean, this is only going to work if we have similar protections that other investments have. And I think that Woody really does a good job of explaining that. And I agree with the rest of what you said. I mean, it's investing is its own language, right? Code is its own language. Accounting is its own language. There's going to be people out there that don't understand the language that they're speaking. And this kind of goes to the accredited investor thing as well, because accredited investor rule was put in because they don't want people that don't understand the way these investments work or don't have the money to lose to get killed on an investment that's highly risky like this. And I think that addressing the accredited investor rule the right way by putting the right protections in place, but also giving people the freedom to put their money where they want to, is going to be an important thing to balance for the industry going forward.
100%. And I think you kind of made a good point. You can't expect everyone to understand and to learn these different languages.
Right.
But what you are kind of obligated to do from a regulatory aspect is to make sure that people don't get taken advantage of for not understanding this.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think the CPA reviews is a good aspect of making sure investors don't get taken advantage of for not truly understanding the accounting aspect behind financial statements.
Yeah, I think in accounting, from the years we spent in school, is the accounting is not necessarily looking for perfection. You look for material misstatement, and I think that's almost like a good barrier for this industry, is to say, look, it's never going to be perfect, but if we can find an acceptable margin of error to make sure that people are getting the information they need and not getting taken advantage of, I think that you're doing something for the greater good of the industry.
100%.
So should we move on to our last story? So Connor sent me this story right before we started, about 15 minutes before we started, but looks really good. So I'm gonna let Connor share his screen for this one. It's about Thumzup.
Wait,
do you want me to share the screen first?
You share it, and then I have a separate screen.
All right,
I'll share. Yeah.
All right, that works for me. Oh dear. Here we go. All right. Accept. Thumzup. I've never heard of Thumzup. Surges to the top 5% of active crowdfunding campaigns, with more than 4.6 million raised since its inception. Reg A Plus offering to end January 10th, 2024. Wow, this looks like a pretty interesting story. So Connor, what was your takeaway from this?
So if you can scroll down just a tad.
Yeah.
I think what really excited me was the fact that Thumzup is a public company traded over the counter. So over the counter QB, and then the ticker symbol is TZUP. And they're in the top 5% of active crowdfunding raises currently. But what excites me is the fact that we're seeing now another public company going the Reg A Plus route and using equity crowdfunding to raise more money. And this excited me because I was talking to Jeremy Frommer, who was, I think, 2 interviews ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he raised a Reg A, I think it was either a Reg A or Reg CF with Vocal, and that's a publicly traded company. And so he was telling me that that he sees more publicly traded companies, especially small cap stocks, some small cap companies going this route because the small cap market is extremely brutal, and a lot of those stocks are getting hammered because a lot of the investment firms are able to just hammer those stocks and kind of have to avoid manipulate them so that they can profit. And all they care about is profit. So it's easy, and the SEC is so worried about the big guys, like the big fish like Apple and Microsoft, that they don't have time to focus on all the tiny, 3,000 small cap stocks.
Right.
So this excites me because clearly they have a big audience. And so them going this route not only shows us that startups can raise money through equity crowdfunding, but also these public companies might go the equity crowdfunding route just to get some more capital in, maybe to build more brand awareness, to get more customers, to turn customers into investors, into advocates. And I think that is an exciting, byproduct of the framework for equity crowdfunding that I don't think many individuals saw maybe 2020, 2021, early on in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd look at it a little less positively than you do. The way I kind of look at it is, when you're a publicly traded company, I think I'm thinking from more of like, this is kind of a devil's advocate point of view.
Okay.
If I'm a shareholder of a publicly traded company and my company goes out and raises a crowdfunding round, right? Like, I think initially I'm going to be like, what the heck is going on? And I think that's a lot of the blowback, correct me if I'm wrong, that Jeremy received with Vocal. Like, what are you doing? But is that true?
It was more on the stock price.
Okay.
So when all these investment firms are naked short selling your stock, there's so many artificial shares being pumped into the company that then the price significantly drops because all of a sudden the market thinks that there's way more shares outstanding than there actually are.
Right.
Because the naked short selling, the short doesn't go through, but the share that was already priced in, so the price already dropped per share down.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was more of the stock price, not him actually raising the Reg CF.
And I could be wrong. I think that speaks to the industry, as in the industry is just not there yet as being more widely accepted. What I do think on the positive side of this is that with regulation, crowdfunding, and you can name your terms, right?
Yes.
Like when you're listed on a publicly traded stock market, I mean, you have very little control over the stock price. You can basically say in a Reg A, like, this is our stock price, and this is what you can buy it at, and the amount of money you're going to get. So I think that's like my devil's advocate part of it was more of like, I could see why people would be like, what the heck's going on, right? Because it's not a very widely known industry at this point. But I do think that there are a lot of positive things that can come with it. Not saying that, it shouldn't be done. I think we've seen, and Jeremy spoke to it, that it's been a very successful thing for him to do. So hopefully the industry is, gets more widely known.
And I think when you talked about, raising a Reg CF, you can name your price, right?
Right.
But the beauty of it is that the market is only going to respond if it's fair.
Right.
So that's the beauty of it, right? It's not like you name your price and then everyone has to listen. If it's not a good price, if it's not a fair valuation, if people don't like it, they're not going to buy it. And the market then tells you and gives you feedback. So that's also what I love too, is just you can make a fair price for not only the investor, but also for the company. And then I was going to share, because I was like looking at the markets.
Yeah. Stop sharing.
The overall market size. So Thumzup does social media advertising.
Okay.
And let me see. So look at this. So I didn't realize the social media advertising market is this big, but in 2020 it was $130 billion.
So
and now, by 2024 it's going to be 120. By 2028, it's going to be 255 billion. So it's slowing down, but it really exploded since 2020, and I find that so fascinating. That always excites me because I never realized this market would have been this massive. And I mean, it makes sense. That's why Facebook makes so much money, right? It's so much money from advertising. But yeah,
Right.
just wanted to share that.
That's an interesting graph right there. No, I mean, you see companies like Google. I mean, it's a considerable amount of their revenue, if I'm not mistaken, is from advertising. I mean, Google's a search engine, right? But
Yep.
getting your product in front of people's faces is everything. Is everything, especially for e-commerce. So,
Yep.
very
And then I
cool.
want to tie that into today. I discovered what a Form 13F is. Do you know what a Form 13F is?
So I saw your tweet about it earlier.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know what that is. And it's, yes, I know what it is. I remembered what it was. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the definition is a form that shows investment firms' holdings or positions that have larger than $100 million worth of assets, right?
AUM, yeah.
So I was looking through a bunch of the most recent ones, and guess which one was guess what company was, top 3 for 60% of all these investment firms?
I saw your tweet, so I got a spoiler, but I'll spoil it for everybody
Spoil
else. It's Microsoft.
Yeah. And then guess what social media Microsoft owns?
I don't know.
LinkedIn.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Microsoft owns LinkedIn. They own 49% of OpenAI. LinkedIn, guess how many monthly active users LinkedIn has?
800 million?
Almost 1 billion. That's insane. TikTok has 1.2. And so I'm thinking in my head, if LinkedIn can just figure out the monetization strategy just a little bit, because they haven't been doing that good of a job figuring out how to monetize, but I see LinkedIn as the future social media platform in like the next 5 years. If they can figure that out, not only do they have OpenAI, they also have LinkedIn too, and they're also Microsoft. It's like, so I don't know if there's a correlation, and all these investment firms have long positions for Microsoft, but definitely a lot of light bulbs going off.
You shocked me with the LinkedIn thing. I thought that they were a private company. I guess that's just shame on me for not knowing that. But that's Microsoft's a great company. I mean, they really are. But did you see Google came out with Gemini? So they got that OpenAI ChatGPT, a little rivalry.
Have you used
we knew
it
it was
yet?
going to happen.
Have you used it yet?
Yeah, I tried to use the new Bard for Google Flights.
How
I'm
was
not
that?
a very good prompt writer, so I put a little bit on myself there. But no, it's definitely cool. Like I loved that video they came out with. That was awesome.
So I heard the video was a little misleading because Microsoft was using kind of the up-to-date version and only are letting users access kind of a later version.
Right.
Okay. But still, it's exciting seeing these AI wars heat up.
Yeah,
it's always a good thing. Competition, baby.
You literally can't go anywhere without somebody mentioning AI. I'm almost getting sick of hearing it, but it is the future. It is the future. So, what can you say? So that'll do it for this week in crowdfunding. I feel like every time we come before an episode, we're like, we're going to keep this one short. I mean, it's, we worked all day. We're like, let's just make 15 minutes. And we're like, no, like next thing you know, we've been on for 25 minutes, and because once you get talking about this stuff, it is interesting, and there are a lot of different ways you can go with it. So, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and Connor, any last thoughts?
We appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.
Yeah, we will see you next time. So long.